we you know what? And Selection Sunday is this Sunday, so Grant, I'm gonna throw this one out there. I also have curveball to end the show here, but
Ooh.
if you had to go with your top four, your four number one seeds on Selection Sunday, who are your four picks? I think this one is there are three that are cemented in there, and then there's one spot that's up for debate right now, and I think it's between a couple of teams. But right now, for sure, the locks are UConn, Houston, and Purdue. Those three are for sure locked number ones. The other one outliers, right, are the two that I think right now off the top of my head that I think that are still fighting for a position for a one seed. How they do this weekend in the tournament, I think is going to go a long way. But right now, I think the last one seed that's up for grabs is Arizona and Tennessee.
See, I have a different opinion. I have Carolina and Tennessee.
Carolina, I think, is also in that conversation.
Carolina and here's the thing. Here's the thing for me. If they win the ACC tournament and beat Duke a third time.
Yeah, which is also crazy to think, too, is that the ACC may only get two teams in the tournament this year. Because
how outrageous
is Carolina, Duke, and right now, Virginia is the number 3 team in the ACC, and they're on the bubble. Same thing with Wake Forest.
Dude, how far the ACC has fallen in college basketball in these last 3 years is incredible. Before, it was the best conference. This was the best tournament of the year. Screw Selection Sunday. I wanted to watch the ACC title game on Saturday night. It was, excuse me, it was the tournament to have. And then, I mean, Louisville has fallen flat on their face. Virginia is like the Iowa Hawkeyes. They can't score. Florida State, they're always up and down. Clemson's a mediocre basketball team who always seems to be always on the first four or the next four out, as a program.
And Florida State, up until
Florida State's
COVID,
not what
they were that perennial. They were always somewhere in that like 5 to 10 range.
Well, Dylan, they always had like 2 7-footers, and every starter on the roster was 6'6" or taller.
It was athletic and could jump out of the gym.
It was incredible. How they never made it to a Final Four or even an Elite Eight, I'll never understand with their size.
They made it to an Elite Eight because Michigan beat them to go to the Final Four in 19 or 18.
18. That's right. That's right.
The one conference tournament that still hasn't been played that I'm still excited for is the Big East. That's always another classic one at MSG because some of these semifinal matchups are lining up to be incredible because you've got UConn and they'll play either the winner of St. John's or Seton Hall. But can you imagine Dan Hurley versus Rick Pitino at the Garden on Friday night?
And St. John's being the Big East New York team.
And St. John's is on the bubble. So we could get and New Mexico is also on that bubble too. So we could get a potential Pitino matchup here in the first four in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh yeah, like the 11 versus the 11?
Yeah.
Or something? Yes.
Uh-huh. But I also have a confession to make. I don't despise Rick Pitino anymore.
Oh, you have a good reason for because Peyton Siva did not get fouled. We all know that.
He did not.
He did not.
What did the ref call?
What did the ref call?
I used to just despise him because he cost Michigan their one national championship, and at that point in the state of Michigan, as far as athletics goes, Michigan basketball was the premier program at that time. I thought that was going to be my only shot that I was ever going to get to see a Michigan team win a national title that I really cared about. And then you fast forward 11 years later, and what do you know? Jim Harbaugh is holding up a trophy, yelling, "Pull it down! Pull it down! We did that!" So. And he was actually on Pardon My Take this week, and it was actually an incredible interview. So if you have time, go back and listen to it. But him talking about going back, I didn't realize that he was the head coach at the Knicks in the late 80s, early 90s. That's one of those guys that you could just hit record and just bring up some eras and listen to him talk and tell stories of all his years in basketball. Because he was also. His first job he was an assistant coach at Hawaii, and he got the job at Syracuse because Jim Boeheim just showed up to his wedding, offered him the job, and probably the only person ever excited to move from Hawaii to Syracuse, New York.
To New York, yes.
So, and I think he's cut from that old school cloth, and I think he's still kind of one of those old and, still old school type of guys that's going to get after guys and, done a great job. He's got St. John's on the bubble, especially from where they've come. I think he still has that old school if he wants to develop players.
Dylan, with a roster who he thinks are soft and they're not athletic and they're not good.
Yeah,
in his eyes.
And he actually talked about that on the when he was getting interviewed by PMT and Big Cat, and said that that was it was a directed statement, and though the guys knew that it was coming, and it's funny how nobody on the team had any issue with it. It was just people in the media that were sitting crying about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then also in the semis too, we could get a Creighton Marquette matchup. Right now it is Villanova DePaul. DePaul's a disaster. Villanova also a bubble team fighting. Villanova right now, I'm looking at the scores or the line. Villanova is a 24.5 point favorite against DePaul.
Oh my gosh.
Which if that's a school too. If they could ever get the right coach, watch out, because
there's no
in
reason.
Chicago, that's a team that could be transfer portal heavy and just get some dudes and turn that around quick. But so if you had to pick, Grant, here, and we're just kind of going. If you had to pick though, your 4 seeds when the brackets come out on Sunday, who are you going with?
Like you said, it's going to be UConn, Houston, Purdue, and I live in a Carolina house. I'm going with the Heels.
All right. That way, Alec won't make you sleep.
Correct. Let's call a spade. Kansas beat Carolina in that title game in 22, and then the Chiefs have won the last 2 Super Bowls. He's getting sick of the Kansas City Metropolitan winning titles, especially one against his team. And he deserves one. It's been a while since Carolina's won a championship. I sound like I feel bad for him. It's been 7 years.
But it was 2017.
2017. And this Final Four this year is in Phoenix.
Ooh, yeah, that is definitely intriguing. And that was where they won it the last time.
That was, yeah. But I say Carolina just because Tennessee, they're going up against some high-powered teams there in the SEC who can score, and I'm not sure they have enough offense this weekend. And then who knows? Yeah. Maybe Rick Barnes is going to tailor it back a little bit and tell his guys, hey, you know what? We've struggled in March before. We don't need to play 3 games this weekend. Maybe we get to just playing 2, or if we win the conference title, great. I mean, if not, we still were the regular season champs. But I'm going to go with Carolina just because I think Hubert's got this thing rolling. They're playing good. And if he can get him on the 1 line and possibly avoid either Houston or UConn until a Final Four, it's a big win for those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what, though? The other thing, we watched Carolina Duke play last Saturday. And I don't know if you saw this, Grant, but after the game, the Duke students were screaming obscenities. They were throwing drinks on the Carolina players. And I have not heard anything from Jay Billis about this. Where is he?
Where's the accountability?
Do we not even allow? Where do we allow? When do we start having the discussion? Do we even allow college students to attend college basketball games anymore? What do you do?
Well, after Filipowski should have won that Academy Award for Best Oscar. When his knee hurt and Jay Billis thought it was the worst thing since O.J. Simpson in the sports world, you would have thought he would have shut that down because fans are getting in the way of these student athletes. They could have been bodily harm. What if that plastic water bottle hits a Carolina player in the eye and he can't see it? He might not be able to, and gives him a concussion. He might not be able to play in the tournament. Come on, Mr. Jay Billis, Mr. Forward thinking. Progressive, I'm all in on the players. The NCAA sucks. Where's this? Where is it, Jay? I don't see it. Or are you? Oh my God, Jay Billis is being a homer. He's defending the Cameron Crazies because he was one of them. I always thought he was one of the more fair people in the media and would give Duke the business when they deserved it. Not anymore. The times have changed in this country, and as a society, we're getting worse. And now Jay Billis has finally been compromised. It's over. We've lost all hope, Dylan.
We have.
We've
Luckily,
lost
they
all
have this show though to fall back on, where we hold, no matter who it is, we hold, even if it is our favorite teams, we hold them accountable.
Dylan, you know what I didn't understand? I know, rest in peace, Lincoln Riley. The badge, or the pin our president had, it said Lakin on there. Can you? I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but it's a weird button for the president to misspell Lincoln Riley. Like, what are we doing, Joe?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he yelled really loud, so I mean, he can handle another 4 years. Yeah, because they gave him every single possible. I want some of what he had. They gave him pretty much every single whatever drug cocktail that was to make sure, because we all know it happened that he was 30 minutes late. So I mean, probably had to change his diaper, probably had to really, and shoot him up because, at 9 o'clock he's already been sleeping for 2 hours. So.
Well, when you have you have that Salisbury steak at 4:30, and you watch the Wheel of Fortune,
with a bowl of ice cream for dessert. Are we way off track? We're way off track here, but when we do our brackets here, I actually, we've said that Tennessee is one of those teams that we should never put on the Final Four. I think I might be back on the train, because what has killed Tennessee in the last few years is that they never have that go-to guy to go get them a bucket when things get tough, someone that can get them out of a funk. They have that this year with Dalton Knecht. So,
correct.
Depending on the matchups, I'm not saying Tennessee is going to get to the Final Four, but this is as good of an opportunity with the team they have, and they finally have a bucket getter as a true alpha number one. I think this is the year that they could potentially get to a Final Four.
And if they play the defense like they've done in years past.
Yep. The other team too is one of my preseason predictions of a Final Four team is the University of Kentucky. John Calipari has those boys rolling. I also think that they have defense. The thing that worries me is what happens when they aren't hitting shots, because I think that's when their defense falters. And they don't. I think Reed Sheppard is he's probably the best freshman in college basketball this year. But what do they do when they're not making shots? What happens? Because I think that's where they're going to get, and that's where you've seen with Calipari teams where they get into trouble is if they're not making shots, their defense completely falls off. But when they are and they're engaged, you get what you saw down at in Tennessee on Saturday.
Well, yeah, and Dill, that's spot on. And to your point, a team like Houston, you don't have to worry about their defensive intensity or their effort. Tennessee, they're going to bring it. UConn's going to bring it every single night. But when Kentucky's not making shots, they just kind of lose interest in playing. And then they can lose to anybody. But at the same time, they can also play with anybody. So you're right on. They're a wild card team, and never been a John Calipari fan, so I wouldn't be too upset if they start missing some shots and they lose early. But hey, that's why we watch March.
That's right. And even like a team like a Houston, I think Kentucky would be a problem for them, just because I think that the thing with Houston is similar to what they've been with Tennessee, is they play tremendous defense. They've just got junkyard dogs on defense. They just hound you for 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes of hell on defense, but they don't have that go-to guy to go get them a bucket where they can late in games. And that's what's haunted them the last 4 years is, they got to the Final Four in 21, but the next couple of years, that's where they've gotten themselves into trouble, is they have games where they just can't hit a shot, and then teams eventually they have a good enough, the little face has respectable defense and a good enough offense to where they can make shots and get Kentucky out of rhythm.
Well, yeah, and to your point, Dylan, in 21, they've had a team in Baylor who was just as physical and played just as good defense as Houston, but guard play wins in March, and those Baylor guards were just on a mission that tournament. They weren't going to be stopped. So who knows? Maybe we'll see if Houston can pull something out of their hat late in the year, but I don't feel confident in them winning a championship. Can they get far? Absolutely. But would I be surprised if they lose in the Sweet 16? Also, no, I would not.
No. And then the other one seed too that and Purdue was one of my Final Four teams at the beginning of the year. I think this Purdue team is more set to get to a Final Four because last year at the guard position they were a little bit more they were young. This year they actually kind of have some guards to complement Zach Edey, someone that can get him out of trouble. So I think this is a year too that Purdue. This is a team that. Am I saying they're going to get to a Final Four? No, but this is as good of a shot as they have as any.
No, that's fair. And I think the ultimate what if for Purdue has to be that 2019 team who blew that lead to Virginia.
Yep.
Because had that team gotten to the Final Four, I think there's a chance they may have won it. Or
I think so.
Or we say this all the time. 2018, the AFC title game was the Super Bowl. 2006 in the Dynasty, Tom Brady brought up the AFC title game against the Colts. Winner of that was going to win the Super Bowl. That Purdue-Virginia Final Four game would have been the national championship.
Elite Eight?
I'm sorry. Purdue-Auburn.
That's right, yeah.
I'm sorry. The winner of that game at US Bank Stadium would have won the national championship. And Purdue has to be just fuming like that. So far, that was our best chance.